Climate Action Committee.
Before we do the roll call, I'll just let Troy give his announcement for his being virtual.
Hello, everyone. I'll be attending this meeting virtually due to an illness.
And is there any other adults in the room with you?
There's not.
Thank you. Roll call. Member Bierce?
Here.
Member Hodges?
Here.
Member Larson?
Here.
Member Lieberman?
Here.
Member Melgen?
Here.
Member Rose Shears?
Here.
And Chair Vahil McClanahan.
Here. All right, we're going to do our land, our land acknowledgement. The City of Albany recognizes that we occupy the land originally protected by the Confederated Villages of Lisjan. We acknowledge the genocide that took place on these lands and must make strides to repay the moral debt owed to this indigenous people, specifically the Ohlone tribe. We thank them for their contributions, which have transformed our community and will continue to bring forth growth and unity. The City of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationships with the tribe and together build a better future for all that now make this their home. We're going to move to item 2. Actually,
Yeah, we're just going to take a quick
Yeah.
pause before number 2, since our announcements are now at the end of the meeting. I'm just going to take a quick second to introduce you all to our new Civic Spark Fellow. This is Alicia, and I'll give her a quick second to just tell you a bit about herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alicia. As you know, I'm the new Civic Spark Fellow. I'm originally from Connecticut, so I just moved here for this job. I'm very excited. It's definitely a lot different than New England, so I'm adjusting. I am a graduate of KALB College in Maine. I graduated last May. I was a government and history double major there. And for the last year, I worked as a digital equity planner in rural Massachusetts. So I'm here, I'm ready to learn, I'm really excited. I'm interested in studying environmental law, so I think this position is going to be great and give me a lot of great context for that. So excited to get to know you all.
welcome, Alicia. All right. Let's move to the approval of the September minutes.
Any questions related to the minutes?
First question. And is there any public comment related to the minutes?
I'm not seeing any.
I move that we approve the minutes.
Second.
Member Bierce?
Yes.
Member Hodges?
Yes.
Member Larson?
Yes.
Member Lieberman?
Yes.
Member Melgen?
Yes.
Member Rose Shears? Chair Vahil McClanahan.
Yes. All right, we're on to item 3, public comment. For any item not on the agenda tonight, public comment will be limited to 3 minutes per speaker.
Nick Peterson, your time starts now.
Yeah, thank you very much. Nick Peterson with Albany Climate Action Coalition. A couple announcements of upcoming climate events in Albany. This Saturday, I believe it's the 22nd at 2 p.m. at the Albany Library. Albany resident Paul Giganti is offering the presentation Electrifying Your Home from a Consumer's Perspective. He will share a story on how he eliminated gas and converted his home to 100% electric. This is not a commercial or a sales presentation. Paul has careful data of his utility bills before and after electrification and show that electrification has resulted in a reduction in his utility bill. The presentation was made a few months ago by a CAC member using mathematical analysis that heating your home with electricity currently is more expensive than with gas. This presentation shows that maybe math alone is not the full story. Then on Tuesday, December 9, ACAC along with the Albany Rotary are presenting the film Merchants of Doubt at the Albany Library at 7 p.m., free public event. This documentary reveals how strategies developed by the tobacco industry to deny smoking's health risks were later used to obscure the dangers of toxic chemicals, pharmaceuticals, and climate change. It shows how manufactured doubt delays regulation and shapes public perception. ACAC has been hosting presentations on various sustainability topics at the Albany Library every other month. We think there is a need for a presentation on responsible waste management based on conversations we've had with Albany residents. There's confusion about proper sorting, especially around plastics. We reached out to Lena Gonzalez, the waste management rep for Albany, about hosting a presentation at the library with us. She said they'd be happy to do one, but can only do a presentation with the city. So we are asking the city to host a presentation. We'd be happy to help with it. The city held one in early 2020 at the community center, which was well attended. Before the city website underwent the recent change, the recording of that presentation was on the website, but appears to have been omitted from the new website. We think those slides could be updated and used for a new presentation, saving staff time preparing the presentation. Last month, ACAC volunteers, with the help of some Albany Rotary members, distributed flyers notifying residents about the free street tree program, which had a 10/31 deadline for planting in 25-26. We distributed to homes that appear to have room for street trees along the neighborhoods in Albany, with the exception of 1,000 Oaks, Somar, and Albany Terrace, the three neighborhoods that have a lot of trees. Thank you.
Jean Wu, your time starts now.
Hello. Good. My name's Jean Wu. I live in Albany. I'm also a member of the ACAC. I am on the public comments today because I want to remind everyone how important it is to have a resilience hub in the city of Albany, given that we don't have one. And we need to start planning and preparing to put in something that has both solar, batteries, EV charging, cooling center, and hopefully the renovation of the cooking section of the community center could be used to assist with food preparation and providing water and other resources in case of an emergency. I believe that AVA Energy has a program. It was introduced and approved, or will be approved today, where they will do resilience hubs, but Albany is not on the short list. There is probably going to be a second tranche, and I really hope that the City of Albany staff is able to work with AVA to develop a real resilience hub at the Albany Community Center sometime in the next 6 months or so. So that's my concern, that we don't have anything, and we don't appear to have anything in the actual planning stage, and we should be doing this now. We have no idea, of course, when the next event might happen, but since we are actually less than a mile from one of the largest earthquake faults in the country, we should be prepared. Thank you.
It looks like we don't have any more public comment.
Thank you. Thank you, commenters. We're going to move now to item 4.1, which is an update on the gas line decommissioning pilot.
Thank you. So we have our consultant, Maribel Tobias. She's joining as a panelist right now. So I'm just going to give that a moment.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
There we go. Thanks so much for joining us, Maribel. I'm about to put our presentation on screen, but I'll do just a quick reintroduction of Maribel. She joined us, I think, in February of this year, if I remember correctly. And she's the principal of Environmental Justice Solutions. They're our consultant for the outreach and engagement section of the gas line decommissioning pilot. And she has been a huge help in leading with that effort. So she and I are going to give an update on the progress so far in that project and what the kind of next steps in the next month or so are going to be. Let me share this. Okay. Can you see this as well, Maribel?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'll just start off with quick background on the project since it's been a little while. So this is a kind of first of its kind pilot project with the eventual goal of fully electrifying every building on a city block and then decommissioning the gas pipeline. This is something that we've been working with PG&E on for quite some time now, since back in 2020 actually. And they helped us use the gas line data to identify 12 potential sites for this type of pilot. In October of 2023, we were awarded a $200,000 grant from the Department of Energy for the phase of the project that we're currently working on, which is the outreach and engagement, electrification assessments of the buildings, kind of getting the plan in place, getting the approval from the building owners, not the actual electrification work itself. We finalized that award in September of 2024, and then contracted with EJ Solutions and Maribel here to start working on that outreach and engagement. And I'll hand it over to Maribel here to talk a little bit more about what we've been doing since that time.
Thanks, Michelle. When we saw you last, we were just finishing up this outreach plan, and we plan to conduct our outreach in several phases with targeted strategies and messages for different audiences. And we're creating a sequence of outreach touches so that we don't just speak with each person once or try to engage them once. We want to do several touches to build relationships, provide value, and guide them towards, participation in the program. And we combined multiple types of outreach touches, including digital, emails, social media, phone calls, canvassing, face-to-face meetings, and snail mail for residents and landlords on each of our 3 target blocks. And our canvassing messages were tailored to meet each resident's needs and context. We also connected with several community anchors, and these are groups within the community that are already working on similar issues and are happy to support our efforts. So we've connected with Albany Climate Action Committee, Acterra, Rising Sun for Opportunity, and Good Green Work. And several of those folks are interested in collaborating with us to possibly host an East Bay Green Homes tour as one of our outreach events for this work. So yes, as I mentioned, we have begun our community outreach with social media, our outreach to the community anchors, outreach to landlords, and then canvassing the neighborhoods, which we did on 3 dates, April 26th, May 3rd, and July 19th. With our July canvassing event also included tabling with the city, where we offered free coffee and donuts. All right, so I kind of skipped ahead to this slide.
Sorry, Maribel, do you want me to go back? I just thought you were good.
No, that's
Okay.
good. I think this is great.
Okay.
I kind of lumped them together. So this is the timeline of what we've been doing. really busy, we also, during that time, created a survey to assess resident beliefs and knowledge about building electrification, and I'll let Michelle speak to that shortly. So at our July 19th event, we also began introducing entry into a raffle for $50 as an incentive for taking our survey, which is still live. And the most recent event that we hosted was a community workshop in August, at the end of August, which we held at the Albany Senior Center. And we met with landlords, homeowners, and renters, and really were able to experience a deep learning and understanding about some of the issues and concerns in the community. So our next step is we'll be hosting a postcard campaign for all of the homeowners and landlords on our 3 target blocks. We're essentially asking folks to answer a simple question for us, which is whether they would like to receive a free energy and electrification assessment for their home or property. And we will be using the information we learned from this postcard campaign to take the next steps around deciding which of our target block groups we'll be moving forward with. So next slide. On these following slides are just a few images of the outreach events and materials that we have that have taken place so far that I've already spoken to. So the first image here shows some of the work we've been doing on Instagram and starting to generate a little bit of buzz in the broader community. The second set of images shows the flyers that we use for our canvassing efforts, our first and second canvassing efforts. And these flyers that on the screen are in Spanish and Chinese. And the third flyer there is for our Coffee and Donuts Day. Next slide. And here are just a few more images of our work out in the community. You can see the postcards that we sent to landlords, our canvassing with our interns, and the table that we did with our associate Itran and Michelle pictured there. So I'll pass it back to Michelle.
Thanks, Maribel. So yeah, as Maribel mentioned, we distributed a survey. We got 11 survey responses. Sorry, I can't talk tonight. We're hoping to get more, and the survey is still open. We also got a lot of kind of informal survey responses as we were, having conversations during the door-to-door outreach and over the phone. And so we've also been taking notes and trying to kind of gather as much intel as we can. So we'll be kind of doing some data analysis of all of those things together. I kept some of the data relatively general for now, since it's still pretty small pool, and we'll be doing a further data analysis later on. But in general, we saw a lot of sort of medium interest in the program. We did it on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being not interested at all, 5 being very interested. And as you can see, we've sort of got a bell curve here, right? And in terms of the kind of main thoughts and emotions that people have about electrification, the main benefits that people were interested in were safety and air quality, lower energy bills, reducing carbon footprint, increased home value, and the ability to integrate with solar and batteries. This is pretty much in line with what we were expecting. We've generally seen that safety is a big thing for a lot of people. That's something that just feels so immediate and so kind of obviously important. cost is also a huge one with lower energy bills. And then also something that I think is not surprising for Albany is people focusing on their carbon footprint and really thinking about this as a green choice that they can make. The main concerns we saw were pretty much all about cost. Not surprising again, the cost of the appliances and the upgrades themselves, rebates and incentive availability, and then also return on investment concerns. I have said for a while that I think this is actually good news because of all of the concerns people can have, this is one of the ones that's simpler to fix. It's not necessarily easy, but, you need money, we can, in theory, we can get money. And if that's the main issue that people have, that's something that we can overcome a lot more easily than, people really, really hating induction cooktops and loving gas cooktops or, other issues like that. Of course, those have come up, but by and large, we've seen that cost is the main issue that people have. And so that's definitely promising. We've also kind of gotten impressions of the 3 blocks that we're looking at as a sort of general statement based on both the surveys, the community workshop, the informal conversations. This is what's basically arisen from the 3 of them. Block A has the most enthusiasm. We have a couple of community champions on that block who are actually willing to go out and talk to their own neighbors about this and really want to make it happen. And we've also already gotten 1/3 of the buildings basically agreeing to do the electrification assessment. So that one definitely is the most promising at the moment. Block B is sort of a split block in a way, as we definitely have seen some interest there, but we've also seen some pretty strong opposition. The strongest opposition in total that we've seen is definitely on Block B. And some of that is not cost-related opposition. It's, other concerns, things related to safety and resilience and health and issues like that. And then on Block C, this one is sort of a middle-of-the-road block where there's been some interest, but we don't have any community champions popping up there, no one who's really excited about it. And in general, we're seeing a lot of people that are sort of like not necessarily against it, but they're not really engaging with us. And it's been harder to kind of connect and get people to, fill out the survey, come to the workshop, do things like that, really work with us more than just kind of like, yeah, maybe, I don't know. So that's sort of the sense of the 3 of them that we're at right now. As Mary Bell mentioned, the next step that we're going to is this mini survey around electrification assessments. And it's really just a 2-question survey is, do you want an electrification assessment and how can we contact you? And the idea of this is we wanted to try to make sure that we had as holistic a picture as possible of the 3 blocks and where exactly the interest level is. And it's sort of this action item, right? Not just, yeah, maybe I'm kind of interested, but like, do you want the assessment or not? And once we have that data, we feel like we'll have enough at that point to figure out how are we going to use up the rest of our funding between these 3 blocks. So this is where things start to become more of a sort of balancing act. We've always known since we started out with the outreach engagement plan that we were probably going to be narrowing the blocks from 3 probably to 2. When we were deciding on them, originally we were thinking we might just do 2 blocks, and we said, well, we really think these 3, to get a little bit more variety between them and to try out some different things, but we'll narrow it down once we have a better sense of which ones are more promising. And now we're kind of at that point, and we have to figure out, do we knock one out? Do we knock out 2 of them and really just focus in on one of them? Or maybe do we do some sort of middle ground where one of them has the most investment and focus, but there's still one that's still having, some engagement with them. Maybe we have a lower level of electrification assessment, sort of a more generalized approach. Or maybe we're sort of spreading it evenly across all three, but all of them are lighter touch. Or, some other iteration of this. There's a lot of potential versions. That process is something that once we have that data, as a team, we'll sit down and really dig through all the data and try to figure out, with the cost numbers and everything, what exactly is the plan. So, obviously there's not enough data for you guys to give specifics on that, but I think for tonight, it would be helpful just to get a sense from all of you about where your priorities are in this kind of balancing act of focusing in our resources to get deeper engagement, maybe a better chance of really, really getting everybody to yes on one block, or trying to keep ourselves a little bit more flexible, not putting all of our eggs in one basket and having more blocks in play in case something comes up and we're really hitting a roadblock on one of them or two of them. So that's what we're kind of looking for your insight on tonight. And then, as I said, once we have that data in and make those decisions, then we'll start scheduling electrification assessments, and then also have those continuing outreach events and other outreach activities to try to get more and more electrification assessments scheduled, and then working into the actually getting people to agree to participate in the program. So anything to add there, Maribel, before I hand it off for questions? No? Okay.
No, I think you covered it.
Great.
I have a couple questions. One is for the budget. I know that DOE gave you $200K, and I think it was $120K for consultants, or 100. How much was it?
All 200 is being used on consultants,
Okay,
although
great.
that does include things like outreach
The
event
AEA
costs.
part of the AEA and part is EJ.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Thanks. And then questions on. Has the DOE funding come in yet from the federal government?
Yes, it has.
Cool. Glad to hear that. Thank you. And then for the blocks, can you share more about which are single-family homes, which are more renters? Is that available for sharing or no?
Yeah, so all three blocks have both single-family and rental. Actually, some of them have single-family home or owner-occupied, single-family renter-occupied, and multifamily renter-occupied. I think all three of those are on all three blocks. And they're a reasonably even mix. Block C has more single-family renter-occupied buildings. But they all have all of those.
C was single-family renters, you said?
Yeah, there have been more of those on there. Yeah. And I think A has a little bit more multifamily.
For the renter situations, is it the landlord that you're talking to that has to make the decision, or is it the occupant?
So the landlord's going to be the one making the final decision, although we are doing our best to engage with the renters as well. It's a little bit harder to do because we have a lot less contact information, and in some cases it's hard to get access during door-to-door outreach, to the building itself. But we are doing our best to do that.
I think, if I recall right, you'll need unanimous agreement from everyone on the block.
That's correct.
And I'm wondering, thinking about my block, I can imagine a couple of homes that I just think would just veto it. Mm-hmm. So I've seen the data on how many people have been behind it, but do you know if there are people on the block, or maybe if the champions of Block A have identified some of those really maybe hard to convert people? Maybe that would help also figuring out how to allocate effort.
Yeah, I think, when we go back to this, in our own door-to-door outreach and our conversations, we've also been trying to get a sense of are there any that are very strong vetoes here? And we think that Block B might have one or two of those. I think it's not like for sure. Like, I think it's possible that they might change their minds, but they're probably the strongest opposition we've seen. And my sense on Block C, although maybe Maribel has better insight, is that it's been harder to get good contact with everyone, and so it's a little harder to say for sure if there are any vetoes there. Obviously, we won't know absolutely until we like get to the end of the process, but just trying to kind of like see that as early on as we can. Do you have any more thoughts on that, Maribel?
No, I think you covered it. And I just wanted to add to the description of the blocks that there is one block that has no multifamily buildings actually, but some of them are, I believe, townhomes or ADUs.
Thank you. Yeah, that's Block C. It's got like townhomes, duplex type situations, but no actual multifamily. Thank you.
Are there sufficient funds if you were to do the electrification assessment for all 2 blocks, if you were to try to reach 2 blocks?
2.
Yeah.
It looks like, it depends on which ones because they're different sizes. But it looks like probably yes. But there's a pretty good chance that we'd have to sort of streamline it and do like very like high level assessments that might like lose some detail and cost data that we could end up needing. So it's a little bit risky to try to do 2 full blocks. We'll have to do like a very in-depth cost analysis once we're sort of really looking at everything. But that's my sense at the moment.
Thank you. I'm also wondering, of the many forms of outreach that have been done, which 1 or 2 have produced the most or the best feedback?
I might leave that one to Maribel.
I might say that canvassing has produced the most feedback because that's what allowed us to speak to the most number of people. But the best feedback was perhaps generated during our community workshop where we brought neighbors together to talk about their issues and concerns, and we were really able to get down deep into some of the things that they're thinking about.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The turnout on the workshop was smaller than we were hoping, but we got a lot of good information that I think speaks to not just the folks who came, but a lot of the other folks on those blocks as well.
Any other questions? How about any public comment?
Nick Peterson, your time starts now.
Thank you very much. This is a lot of good work, and thank you for your efforts. It wasn't clear to me how this was being presented. If people think they're going to be forced to electrify, they're going to sort of dig in a little more. And if that was the case, or not, just the electrification and accepting it was sort of the goal. It seems like this could be presented as, hey, the city's doing a study, 3 different areas. And in order to complete the study, we need to do assessments of all the properties. This doesn't obligate you to electrify. It's just to support the cost analysis of what it would take to do these areas. I think if people know they're participating in a study and that it doesn't mean that, we're trying to trick you into changing how things are, they're going to be a little bit more cooperative. So maybe that was done, maybe not. But I think it would be good that people understand that this helps the city. Also, that they should know that at some point it won't be possible to replace gas-fired equipment with new gas-fired equipment when it runs out. So they're getting in ahead of the curve. And then, talking about how there is a timeline where at some point gas just has to stop being burned. And that's within, getting into the 2030s, but it isn't that far away. So I think there's a little psychology that could be used here to at least get everyone on board to do the assessment, as long as they know, look, the assessment's just a study, doesn't obligate us to anything, gives information to the city. The city's then gonna, come back and say, hey, here's how it could work. More information for the people that own and live in the buildings in the area. The other thing I was going to mention is my understanding, it's not just building owners, but it's the occupants. Occupants pay the utility bill, and the utility has to serve each customer. So if there's a tenant that has gas and they say, I don't want to give it up, then that's it, because it's the agreement between the utility customer and the utility. Doesn't matter that it's a tenant or a building owner. So that's why this is such a difficult process to do. But anyway, I hope you consider maybe using a little bit of community help psychology to kind of convince people, look, they're not obligated to anything. They get this. It doesn't cost them anything. There's maybe a little time involved, but they'll get information back. And it could be helpful in the long run when they are at some point required to do this kind of work. Thank you.
Lucinda Young, your time starts now.
Hi, this is Lucinda Young, and thank you so much for the presentation. I had been wondering, the status of the program and had not heard anything since last spring, so it's great to get an update. I've got several questions, just things I'm not clear on. First of all, how is the cost of electrification being presented to the homeowners, or is the question just, are you interested in electrification irrespective of the cost? Is it being presented, we will find funding, so we want to know if you're interested, assuming the process is paid for, because someone's interest is going to vary tremendously between whether it's going to be funded by someone else or whether they're going to have to come up with the funds. It looked like from the three blocks that were presented that, block A, at least at this point, looks clearly in the running to me. And I believe Michelle had said that 1/3 of the buildings had expressed interest. I'm just wondering how many total homeowners in that block have to agree. If we're talking about 10, it's a whole lot easier than having to get, say, 40. So I was curious about that. And also, Block B, it was mentioned that there was strong opposition. I'm just curious what that strong opposition was based on. Let's see, I'm a volunteer with the Switches On, and PG&E has a program which Mary Bell's and Michelle, too, may be well aware of, the Powerful Neighborhoods program and the Electrify My Block program, where PG&E is paying for complete electrification for certain zones. It's necessarily a block. It can be as little as one home, or it can be as many as, like 15 homes, but they all have to agree in the zone. And there's at least one home in Albany that has been selected under their Powerful Neighborhoods program. I'm wondering if there's any collaboration between this program and the Powerful Neighborhoods or Electrify My Block program. It seems like there could be a lot of learning. They're doing outreach. We're going door to door. We went by the home in Albany. The homeowner wasn't there to try to talk to them. And I'm also curious how attendees, are showing at the workshop. Oh, and one other thing about the Powerful Neighborhoods program, there's supposed to be more Albany homes coming up all the time. So just curious on that. Thank you.
that's all the public comment we have.
Thank you. All right. It's time for a discussion.
Follow-up question, can you share the number of residences, like, or number of tenants on each of the blocks?
I don't know that I can give you specific numbers on that.
Because Block A is 10 and Block 2, C
I'll
is...
say that Block B is the smallest, then A, and then C has the most.
Is the most?
You know what, actually, we should give some time for Michelle and Mary Bell to answer the questions that came through public comment.
I'm happy to do that. I'll, first to Nick Peterson's questions about the sort of messaging. We've been trying to be really clear in the messaging that this is not a mandatory program, that this is voluntary, and that, we're trying to work with people to answer their questions and hear their concerns and see if we can make people get to a yes on it. Thinking a lot about the kind of the psychology and the messaging, and we've definitely been giving information about the air district rules and all of the great reasons to switch over to electric appliances. That's definitely been a big part of this. In terms of the cost, the cost is a little bit of a tricky thing because we don't have a specific budget for the electrification work, and we also don't know how much it'll cost until we do the electrification assessments. So there's a little bit of a chicken and egg there, and that's been, it's a delicate thing for us to try to explain to people. But really the main point we've been trying to get across is that it's a program that's here to help them electrify, to cover at least some of those costs, and just kind of as an initial thing to figure out what those costs are. And like Nick Peterson was saying, that doing that assessment is not locking you down into an electrification. And if anything, it's just giving you information about your house that's useful to have. We've been talking through that with folks, and that I think has been part of the reason it's been so helpful to have the face-to-face time and on the phone conversations, so we can sort of explain the complexity there. The big idea is that it's going to help pay for at least some of those costs. What else? A question about the strong opposition on Block B. I think there were concerns around the electric appliances themselves, especially induction cooktops, concerns about the sort of resilience issues that come from having only one source of power rather than two, some health concerns related to electricity. Anything else sticking out at you, Maribel? Just, some things that were both strongly felt and also a little bit more difficult to overcome than this is expensive. I think I hit all the questions. Anything else that I'm forgetting?
I think that's all of them. Okay, now we can move to discussion.
Are we looking to roll it down from 3 to 2, 2 to 1, or like is all three of them, those options on the table, or what's the goal?
Yeah, I think, we won't make a decision specific to like 3 or 2 or whatever tonight. That's going to come with some of this more data that we get as well. But I think it'll be helpful for us to have a sense of what you all prioritize in this program. If you think it's really important that we keep things as wide as possible and try to cover as many blocks as possible, even if it's a little bit less deep, or vice versa. If maybe you think, if it looks like there's a veto, just leave that block out entirely, or no, we really want to try to push and get the vetoes to change their minds, or, those kinds of thoughts about, the sort of general approach that you'd be interested in the city taking on this type of thing. That's sort of what we're looking for tonight.
I will say that having received the feedback that the in-person canvassing and workshops are of higher quality, and this is a pilot, so we want to learn as much as we can, and I would personally lean towards reducing to the smallest number of people in order to get the highest quality of feedback. That's just 2 cents.
Yeah, I had the same idea, which is, given that the consultants are not residents, like you can overcome a veto if you're a neighbor. You can't if you're a consultant, in my opinion. So we should focus on what's most feasible because this is run by consultants and not so much by neighbors, not as much. And I think the question for me is it's 1 versus 2 rather than 2 versus 3. I think that the one with opposition is like, don't bother, because if the goal is 100%, you're wasting your time on that block. And if the goal is to keep options open, you know, the one that has a block C, I think, and block C is the lack of community champions. You could spend time trying to develop champions or engage more community anchors or get more enthusiasm there. Like there's a possibility there, but I think if the goal is to get this 100%, then focusing on one block is better. So for me, it's between 1 versus 2 and not 2 versus 3. I would just ignore the one that has possible vetoes.
I think that all makes sense, what you guys are saying. I would just say if the ultimate objective is just to hone in on getting that block and moving it forward, then that all makes sense. There is some value in having people do an energy assessment and learn about their homes, especially the people who are sort of like more interested or championing, or, you know, they might pursue that individually on the blocks that don't participate. So as much as the budget allows, I'm sort of like less concerned about focusing, but I understand there are also human resources involved, like Mary Bell's time and your time, and, you know, you can't chase after everything, and you probably don't want to chase after a block where you don't think it's going to happen. But I still would suggest that there's some value in people doing these assessments, and it's not money lost, it's maybe more time lost.
I was just going to chime in on, I do focus on one. Just, you know, it's going to be really hard to get that one probably. So focus on that one. And it's a learning. So, you know, that's the whole idea, is to see how far you can get with that and learn from it. And if that didn't pan out, then you can always go back to the second one. I would focus on one.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. I think focusing our attention on Block A, or whoever is the most interested, would be the best, especially considering the community champions in the area and the fact that they could help sway people who are like a little iffy about it.
Troy?
Sure. Yep. Yeah, I also agree with narrowing. I think the most interesting things that can come out of this study, or I guess kind of the 2 goals, is one, I think, yeah, the more interesting learnings will come the deeper we get to see how far we can get towards 100%. So I think that is towards narrowing. And then I also do like the goal of kind of general education and planting seeds for people to do their own upgrades, no matter what happens with this. But it feels like there's enough people on each block to accomplish that anyway. Even if you were just focusing on one, that still seems like quite a bit of assessments being done. So yeah, I think I'd vote towards narrowing towards higher, probably 1, but yeah, potentially 2 if you still think there's some chances there.
That was very helpful, and it's nice that you all agree. That makes it easy. Any other thoughts or comments, questions?
I guess my question is, I've seen spam flyers that are not part of this program stickered to building doors in the area that are for some spamming company that's doing this kind of thing, that's pretending to be a tech program, and they're not. So have you encountered any misinformation encountered among residents, or not so much?
Sorry, what was that last bit?
Have you encountered any misinformation?
Misinformation. I think we've definitely had some people who were trying to check to make sure that this was a city-sponsored program. And we've tried to do our best to make sure that it's really clear in all our outreach materials. You know, the city seal is really big in the middle, and, you know, having city staff presence as much as possible and that sort of thing. But we have had some concerns about it. I don't know that we've had, like, I haven't heard anything about this like particular thing, yeah, please do. So nothing specific to that, but okay. Have you guys heard anything about that, Maribel, or any other misinformation issues?
Well, one misinformation issue that we did hear during the workshop had to do with folks thinking that this program could raise their taxes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there was, I think, something about property tax, raising property taxes that was unrelated to this and kind of in conversation, and they were kind of conflating the two. So that was something that came up. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Does PG&E help with the outreach and communication directly to the?
They haven't been working on the outreach specifically. We've been communicating with them a lot about, strategy and data and all kinds of things related to the program and their other programs that they run, but they haven't been involved in the outreach specific to this.
Would they be allowed to?
I'm not 100% sure. I don't know that they're interested in doing that. And I think it would probably make things harder rather than easier, which is why we didn't try to pursue that type of a partnership. Yeah. Any other thoughts, questions?
I was wondering about the response to the question that Lucinda had asked, but I think perhaps that is the answer. She was wondering if you all had partnered at all with those two PG&E programs.
Right, yes. Yeah, we've been in contact with, I think, pretty much all the relevant folks at PG&E who are working on this type of issue. That particular program name, I'm not 100% sure if it's the same as a program that I've talked to them about or if it's a different one. So I'll have to double check on that. But we have been in a lot of communication with PG&E and learned a lot from them about this type of work. So.
Other questions or comments?
I wonder if the county assessor has a statement that you could include in the outreach that says if you electrify and it's less than X dollars, it will not affect your property taxes. I just don't know. I spent a lot of money on my heat pump and a new panel and so on and so forth. It did not affect the property taxes. But maybe there's some limit, and if you go above that, it does. I just don't know what the facts are.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the property tax issue that came up in the meeting was more about making the tax rate higher through some sort of city measure or something. I'm not 100% clear on what it was, but it was an unrelated program. It was going to be across the board. So that was just two separate things that were being conflated. We haven't had any issues or questions come up about how electrification impacts property taxes, but that's probably a good thing for us to look into in case people do ask about it, because I wouldn't be surprised if that comes up in the future. So,
In the multifamily houses, has it been easier to talk to the tenants or the landlords?
I would say generally the landlords. Would you agree with that, Maribel?
Yes.
I mean,
We have spoken to some tenants, and it's been a mixed bag between them as well. Some are highly interested, and others not so much.
Yeah, we do have contact information from our parcel data and business license data about landlords, whereas tenants, it's we don't really have anything other than just the mailing addresses for the units. So.
The rule that, what is that? Section 451 that says, if any one person still wants gas service, then PG&E must leave the service in place. How does that apply in a multifamily household if it's broken into individual meters?
Yeah.
The tenants.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting point. My understanding of this, and I will double check it because it's important to be clear on, my understanding is that, the landlord has the ability to make alterations to the building and can choose to change out appliances. And so if they choose to change out the appliances to electric ones, that's what's now available in the building. So I think that kind of gets over the potential issue of a tenant veto. That said, it's still important to be communicating with tenants and getting buy-in. But that's my understanding. I will double check on that.
Thank you. Not seeing any other comments?
I have one other comment, was that I do think prioritization is very valuable and important. In particular, there's one example of a utility that it's a different area, but they had like 50 miles or some huge amount of mileage to a rural area serving customers, and everyone but one person wanted to electrify, and then they had to replace an entire gas main at millions of dollars of expense to the public for that one person's gas at their house. So don't overestimate the power of the veto, and making sure that we can focus resources where it's most likely to succeed, I think, is going to be really valuable.
Yeah.
Because we don't have the policy changes related to Section 4501 of the code. So.
Okay.
Agreed. All right. I think that's it. If Michelle and Maribel are.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Maribel, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's great to see everyone.
Right. Thank you. That was item 4.1, and it's just about 8 o'clock. So I think we'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll return with items 5.1 and 2. We are reconvening Climate Action Committee. And we're going to proceed to item 5.1, support for Bay Area Air District Rules 9.4 and 9.6.
Yeah. So this item is having a bit of a shift because there was a little bit of a miscommunication, and the City Council actually voted on this in their meeting on Monday night and adopted I think the same or very, very similar resolution to the one that we have tonight. So our staff recommendation is now moot, but we thought we would just spend a few minutes kind of providing the context for you all about what this is all about and what's happening, just to make sure we're all on the same page with it. So I'll hand it off to Alicia just for a minute to kind of explain the rules and the amendment process and what this is all about.
Yeah, so I'll just go over quickly what the rules are and then what the accompanying amendments are. So Rule 9.4 and Rule 9.6 were both established about 30 years ago. Rule 9.4 aims to reduce nitrogen oxides emissions from small fan-type residential and central furnaces. Rule 9.6 is directed at reducing nitrogen oxides emissions from natural gas-fired boilers and water heaters. There were amendments to both rules that were adopted in 2023 that will only allow the sale of zero nitrogen oxides electric heaters, furnaces, and large commercial water heaters in the Bay Area by 2027, 2029, and 2031, respectively. There is also another amendment that was introduced as of October 2025 for Rule 9.6 that would address heat pump water heater affordability and implementation challenges. So the Air Quality Management District found that the average cost of installation for a heat pump in the Bay Area is now between $1,840 and $3,496, depending upon the baseline appliance that the homeowner has. These conditions kind of present, significant challenges for anyone who's low income, residents who need an emergency replacement loaner, and any edge case replacement projects where, the cost becomes greater than average because of installation or technical problems. So the proposed amendment would allow exemptions for small capacity units with a delayed zero nitrogen oxides compliance date of 2031. Additionally, any post-2027 installations of nitrogen oxides emitting units would be allowed for unique circumstances. So, high-cost electrical or space constraints, hydronic heating use, high heat business demands, low income status or emergency replacement would give you an exemption. As of right now, the vote for this amendment is slated for the spring of 2026, so in the near future.
Great. So there's sort of two tracks when it comes to this amendment process. The amendments there's sort of a draft amendment that Alicia just laid out. Comments on that are due in November, I think the 24th of November. And then there's a vote on the amendments that's happening early next year, probably in the spring. And there's also a campaign mounting to try to overturn the amendments entirely and to make it possible to install gas furnaces and water heaters for many years to come. That campaign is sort of kicking into gear right now, and we're expecting that they're going to be working into next year to try to get the Air District Board, rather than adopting the amendments Alicia explained, to adopt amendments that say, never mind, keep installing gas, it's all good. And so the resolution that's attached to the agenda tonight is basically a resolution supporting the concept of this electric-only installation and encouraging the Air District to keep those general rules in place with the sort of amendments that Alicia noted that make it a little bit easier for difficult cases, high costs, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really sort of supporting the general idea. It doesn't have comments specific to the amendments. It's not getting into the nitty gritty. It's just saying, don't listen to this opposition campaign. And that resolution doesn't have a specific deadline other than this vote is coming up in the spring. So that's the resolution we were going to talk about tonight and recommend to the City Council. As I mentioned, they already passed that resolution on Monday. So that point is now moot. And that resolution is then going to be sent up to the Air District to signal the City of Albany's support for these rules that help us meet our goals of electrifying the City of Albany and requiring those time of replacement electrification installations. So that's sort of the overview of what happened. There's no action to take on it tonight, but we're happy to answer any questions about the rules and the amendments and all of these things.
I've read the concept paper. Can I talk about it?
Can I say that again?
I read the whole paper. Can I talk about it? Would that be useful, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's within the Brown Act rules, I think just within the discussion portion.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Question, is the vote that's coming up in the spring on an amendment to both 9-4 and 9-6, or just one of them?
So as of right now, they've only put in amendments out there for 9-6. My understanding is that there may also be amendments to 9-4, but that might not happen this spring. That might happen a little bit later because the timeline's a little bit later. I'm not 100% sure whether that has been scheduled yet or not.
Can you speak to what this campaign consists of, the opposition campaign?
So what I know about it is that it's mainly being supported by the California Association of Realtors. It seems like there may be support coming from Southern California gas companies as well, but I'm not certain of that. And it's really focusing on the cost of electrification. The name of the campaign is Too Costly Bay Area. And their essential argument is that electrification of these appliances is just too expensive across the board and we should get rid of the rules.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other questions. How about public comment?
I don't see any public comment.
Any discussion on this item?
If I may spout off for 5 minutes a little bit here. This 30-page paper proposing amendments to the air quality rules is complex and nuanced and worth noting a couple things about it. So about 20 different nonprofits are supporting the proposed amendments to the amendment, which is to make the exceptions for low income and difficult to electrify water heaters to 2031 rather than 2027. So the supporters of these amendments include Sierra Club, NRDC, 250 Bay Area, Earth Justice, Poder, RMI, and other nonprofits that are pretty well-known, respected EJ groups, as well as mainstream environmental groups. So the support for the equitable electrification and the delaying the rules is really for addressing the cost issue for a lot of folks. So I think it's a possible good middle ground to handle the cost questions and kind of potentially preempt some of the opposition. The nuances of it, though, are that by letting low-income folks use old school appliances on gas, you're letting poor people have worse air quality. So it's a really challenging topic because do you require that poor people still have more expensive appliances but cleaner air, or do you require that they're allowed to do gas until 2031 but then have poor air quality as a result? So it's not an easy answer to some degree, but I just wanted to highlight that it's a little more nuanced than you might think. And I'd encourage anybody interested in this topic who wants to comment on these November 24th, I think is the deadline. And then there are public meetings with the Air District, December 3rd and 10th, board meetings and various things. The implementation working group for the water heaters rule has been going the last year or two, so that wrapped up this year. And then the furnace working group is going to has already started with one meeting or starting soon. in terms of feedback from community groups, nonprofit groups, industry, et cetera. So it's not an easy answer, like should you say everyone has the same thing versus you let folks use the old equipment longer. My personal opinion is that the equity angle, it addresses the political opposition angle to make them more palatable to keep it, but it's just not perfect for that regard. And then the other piece about these rules was that, I forgot what I was going to say. Sorry, I'll come back to that.
I'll say thank you for that. That's really helpful context, particularly the parts about when to engage. Thank you.
Alicia just confirmed for me that the deadline for the comments is November 24th.
Awesome, thank you.
I can also read out the specific exemptions, which are interesting to note because the restaurants are included in the exemptions list of industries. Healthcare providers, you think about dry cleaners or laundry facilities that need high temperature water, hydronic heating systems, folks with radiant heating their floors, the hard to electrify panel issues or not enough space in the panel, low income, et cetera. So there's a fair amount of exemptions that are covered, and it's not just low income folks, it's also key political opposition areas, like the Restaurant Association is one. We think about that, and if they can do whatever they want, they'll be happy to kind of go along with it. I think is my thinking. Again, just my guessing at what they're going for. High heat business demands, emergency replacement as well. So I think they're probably going to end up, as my best guess, they're going to end up with this equity angle. Oh, wait, I want to mention the rebates. So once something is required, you might not get more rebates. So rebates tend to be motivating action in advance of a requirement. So 2027, and this is required to have heat pumps only for water heating, no more tech, no more big rebates, no more IRA right now. So I think that's worth noting of that if we're imagining a world with no more rebates for water heaters, the best thing we can do for poor folks is make this more equitable to delay this to make it more affordable without reneging on it and removing it entirely. Think about it.
Although, I mean, if there are whole swaths of the housing stock that is going to be exempted, the agencies could just redirect that funding to support electrification.
That would be a great idea. Yeah, exactly. We should take the funding that they would be doing and then put that into that focused area, yeah.
I can also imagine a scenario where they're required, and then there are programs from AVA, from PG&E, from other, we'll still have public good funds, that's collected on your bill every month, that we could argue should be used for low income. Maybe that's a rule down the road that when we get there, we could consider.
Any further comments on this? All right. Thank you for bringing us up to speed. I'm glad we kept that item. Okay. This may say 5.1 on your agenda. It's item 5.2, and it's a report on the multifamily EV charging program.
Yeah. So I'll kick us off, but our zero emission transportation subcommittee will definitely have things to add here. This is a proposal for a multifamily EV charging pilot program, a bit different from the one we did previously. And I'm just going to kind of run over the main beats of the proposal that the subcommittee put together, and then leave it to them to kind of talk about it in a bit more detail and give their reasoning and more thoughts on that. So just as a reminder, the city funded a multifamily EV pilot program a few years ago to put EV chargers in multifamily buildings and to provide technical assistance and funding for those installations. We had a $50,000 budget, which included $15,000 each for 3 buildings, plus another $500 of discretionary funds. Sorry, 500. Yeah, wait, 5,000. Yes, sorry. That's a typo. Thank you, Catherine. And we focus specifically on our sort of mid-sized 8 to 20 unit buildings that we have a lot of in Albany. We required building owners to contribute to the project cost, and they ended up contributing about 20%. So that program was effective. We installed 18 chargers. We learned a lot of information, and has helped shape thinking around different types of programs. And in that time, we still have an incredibly small amount of public charging available in Albany, and also very few multifamily buildings, aside from the ones we worked with that have EV charging available. So there's still very much a need. We also have the City Council Strategic Plan Goal 1, which includes exploring opportunities to facilitate EV charging. And we know that multifamily tenants are the ones that face the most barriers to charging and to converting to EVs. For the most part, people that live in single-family homes are able to charge cars at their homes more effectively. It costs less to do the installation. If they own the home, they can just do that themselves without having to talk to a landlord about it. It's all much simpler. So that's sort of the why, and I'll let them talk about that more later on. But this is the main points of the proposed program. So it would be a rebate-style program with a total budget of $18,000. That's based off of the amount that's currently in the Climate Action Reserve Fund. And it would be a two-tier rebate. So there would be a $750 rebate per building for each project, plus $750 per charger installed. So a building that installs 2 chargers would get $750 for the building, plus 2 $750 chargers, which comes out to $700. Yes, thank you. Math. There would be a minimum of 2 chargers per building, and then a maximum of $6,000 in rebates per building, so that you'd get at least 3 buildings in the program. So that's the big overview. A bit more detail on the thinking behind it. We talked both in the subcommittee and in the full committee about the concept of doing a rebate type of structure versus a direct install. A direct install would be where the city chooses a contractor and a sort of installation model and just gets building owners to sign up, and then we schedule it and kind of organize it all. The rebate approach is a lot less expensive and more flexible. The city doesn't have to spend nearly as much time doing all the organization. Different building owners can do different kinds of installations and choose their own contractors and that sort of thing. It does require a bit more effort from the owners, so that's sort of a downside, especially if an owner is feeling really overwhelmed by the whole thing and they'd rather just sign up. But that said, even with a rebate program, staff can still provide information on different kinds of installations and contractors that work in the area and things like that to help out the building owners. And kind of on the flip side of that, direct install, like I said, it takes a lot more time and funding. It could be a bit complex to kind of put that together. But it does minimize the effort from the owner. So that was what we were weighing, and ultimately the subcommittee decided on the rebate style structure. There we go. And then in terms of the structure of the funds themselves, the kind of building plus charger approach is based on the actual cost structure of these projects that we saw in the previous program. Basically, there's fixed costs that come with each building for the planning, for the permitting, for the travel time for the contractor to come out there, electrical work, so some of the electrical work, not all of it, but every building is going to have those fixed costs that they just can't avoid. And then there's also the variable costs where each charger costs X amount more, and if you add one more, it costs that much more. And so what ends up happening with this type of cost structure is that smaller buildings or buildings that are only putting in a few chargers end up paying comparatively more per charger. And they often get left out of the other kinds of programs that we've seen, especially the sort of larger scale state-run programs that are really trying to focus on buildings that can put in like 20, 30, 50 chargers in one place. And our little fourplexes just get completely left behind. So this type of structure really balances the incentive, and it makes it more reflective of the cost of each project. And then also, we decided to keep a single rebate amount for all charger types. So if you're putting in a dumb 120 volt outlet, or if you're putting in a whole charging station box, you're going to get the same rebate. The reasoning behind that was that we're really trying to focus on these lower cost, lower tech installations, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a moment. And we felt like there wasn't really a reason to try to incentivize people to do more and spend more. And another particularly important thing is that if you're looking at 120 volt versus 240 volt, the level 2 and level 1 and level 2, if you're just installing outlets, the relative cost is not very different. It really doesn't cost that much more to bump it up to 240 volts. It's a little bit more in terms of the equipment. Labor is pretty much the same. And so we felt that for buildings that have the power in their electrical panel to do that, it's really not going to cost them that much more. If they want to, that's great, and they don't need an extra rebate for it. And then also, the benefit of doing a level 1 outlet of 120 volt is that people could then use that for e-bikes and for other types of modes of transportation. So that was the thinking behind keeping that single rebate structure. And of course, it simplifies everything, which is always good. Onto that installation concept I referenced. We talked about this a little while back. This is a concept based on the information we got during that first pilot project, the kinds of issues we came up against, the opportunities we saw, and the idea is that I think it would be a really effective approach for many buildings in Albany to simply install 120 volt outlets, exactly the same kind that you're plugging in your phone or your computer to, in each parking space, and connect that directly to the tenant's sub-panel. Most of our apartment buildings do have sub-panels for each tenant. If you want, you can cover that with a little lock, or you don't need to. But it works really effectively because then every time the tenant plugs in, it just goes straight to their own electric bill. And there's no fancy software involved. If they've got an EV rate, if they've got Carafera, whatever it is, it just automatically works. And so it's a really low cost in an ongoing sense. They don't have to do maintenance costs. And the fact that it's a simple outlet keeps the costs of the installation down as well. And this also works for buildings with a limited electrical service. Some of them have really limited electrical service, maybe not all of those, but in a lot of cases this will work and it'll be relatively low cost. And so that's really what we're basing those rebate amounts off of. I've estimated that the cost per charger of this type is around $2,500. That's based on both permit data that we have as well as a similar program going on at Peninsula Clean Energy. And that sort of total number is including those, those fixed costs of the building. So from there, again, it's a rough estimate, but I think there's probably about $2,000 of fixed costs per building and then another $2,000 of variable costs per charger. We'll find out if this is right, if the program goes ahead, but I think it's, roughly in the sense of scale there. And so the rebates are meant to cover a little over a third of those costs, both for the per building costs and the per charger costs. And to just give you a sense of the scale, with the budget that we laid out of 18,000, if we only have 3 buildings sign up and they each do 8 chargers, then we get 24 chargers total in those 3 buildings. On the other side, if we have 8 buildings that each do the minimum of 2 chargers, then we get 16 chargers total. So, more chargers or more spread out between buildings. And of course, most likely we have something kind of in the middle where we have a few that do 2 and a few that do 8 or, whatever. But that's sort of the scale of buildings and chargers we would be looking at with this budget and program structure. All right, so I'll leave it there, and I'll hand it off to our subcommittee members. Let me know if you want to go back to any of those slides, and feel free to just, share more details about your thoughts for the program.
A question? After this? Yeah.
That was a great presentation, Michelle. I don't really have anything to add. I actually have a question, but I can wait until questions. A question I should have asked you when we had our committee meeting. But.
I'll toss in a couple of things just in terms of the thought process and how we came to these decisions. And especially one of the big things we talked about was, the initial question, rebate versus direct support. We talked about that a bit. And a couple things that kind of swayed us towards the rebate were that a rebate scales better in the long term. And this is a pilot, this is a test. And so we know that rebates scale better if we roll this out as a big program in the city. And so we wanted to test this to see if we get positive response to this, because direct staff, project management doesn't scale very well. And so it'd be difficult to roll that out as a big program. So we wanted to test the rebate first. Property owners, Michelle, we asked her about this, and from the earlier pilot, learned that the property owners have contractors that they deal with regularly, and getting a contractor for this kind of job would not be a hardship for them. In fact, they probably are better at it than, they probably have somebody that they use a lot already. So that didn't seem to be a barrier. So staff help with that probably, it would be nice, but it wasn't a big deal. At least that's the way we saw it. And this leaves more money available, actual tangible money available for the property owners, which is highly motivating to property owners because that's where they live. And the other thing was the installs we found from the earlier pilot were pretty variable in terms of the complexity of the project or the site or the types of panels and that sort of thing. So even for staff to try to take that on, it's going to be a project management job every single time. So it's probably better just to let a contractor get in and do that. And then lastly, we kind of estimated that 25 to 50% rebate would be motivating, and so that's where we came up with the 37.5, split the difference. And so we'll find out if that's motivating. We think it will be because the total, as you saw, the total overall project cost in these cases is going to be $5,000 to at the most like $7,000 or $8,000, something like that. So it's not a huge major investment for them, and so we think that this, that 35% is going to be a motivating rebate. My learnings on that.
Thank you. Anyone questions?
Yeah, Troy, do you have anything to add?
Sorry.
Sure. Yeah, I guess the last pieces I'll add, I think, a rebate program is something the city is familiar with at this point, and I think we know how to run. So it felt like something that wouldn't be too hard to get off the ground. And I think it leaves, because of the low effort of administrating getting off the ground, I guess, we can see how it goes. If it doesn't get the type of response we're looking for, we could pivot to more hands-on approaches. But it seems like the one that has easiest to launch and quick to pivot from if we want to try other things out.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, question and a comment. first with questions is, how many buildings are there total in Albany that are multifamily that could be eligible for this total?
So I know that there were about 50 of those 8 to 20 unit buildings. I'm guessing we probably have another 50 that are like 4 to 6. And then we have a few of the really large ones. Obviously there's the big condos, and there are some that are like 60 buildings. I don't know, there's probably another 20 of those or something. So yeah, something in the realm of like 100 to 150. Of course, the larger properties would be limited in the number of chargers they'd be able to install through the program, but they would still be eligible.
I had a question that just arose while you were talking, which is you had that nice slide that showed the sub-paneling, and the ease of having a tenant being able to have the electricity on their bill. And I wondered if that would be a required element of the program, or if it's up to the landlord to decide if they just have it master metered.
So, I mean, it's up to the committee to decide what to recommend. I think the way we've laid it out here is that it doesn't require that. It's just that the rebate amount is based on that kind of installation that we think makes sense. But, there's going to be buildings where that doesn't work for some reason, or where something else makes sense. So, I think we can leave it pretty open. Obviously, there's some amount of danger if you don't put any kind of strictures on this. But, I think if we just say it has to be an EV charger that tenants can use, that's sort of the simplest way to do it. But yeah, I think it's something for the committee to discuss if they want to narrow that down further.
I can think of a lot of pros and cons. I didn't ask the question with a specific direction, but I love the elegance of the sub-panel, but I understand that could raise costs. And also if you had like a couple chargers on common area circuits or whatever, then the tenants who are not using an EV might complain, because ultimately that cost is shared or borne in part by them. Yeah. So it's not as elegant of a solution, but I understand there may be financial reasons why a landlord would want to do that. So,
yeah, and there are buildings that have kind of weird scenarios and weird electrical stuff where this solution won't work for everyone, and it could be that there's a similar, slightly different solution that also costs about the same, and we don't necessarily want to make it impossible for them to participate. So I think that would be the benefit of keeping it flexible. But yeah, if we want to try to really focus in on this approach that we like, and maybe it only works for the buildings it works for, that's a possibility too.
Other thoughts on this? No? Yeah. Do you see anyone on public comment?
Yes.
Jean Wu, your time starts now.
Oh, hi. Hi. This is an interesting story, but I don't think that having level 1 charging for EVs is actually realistic. To be useful for most EVs that have somewhat larger batteries, you're going to need a level 2 charger. So I think you need to have an option. So if people want to put in a level 2 charger, then they have the option of doing that and not be restricted to a level 1. I realize that there may be some sub-panel issues, but realistically, if you own an EV, you're not going to charge with a level 1. You're going to charge with a level 2. And so it may be useful for e-bikes, but it's not useful for full-scale EVs. That's my comment.
Lucinda Young, your time starts now.
Thank you. Just a response to Jean's, my understanding was from the presentation that it is for level 1 or level 2. And I actually think that level 1 does have a role for EVs, and I think it's way underestimated. There have been some studies. I remember reading an article not long ago that, for the vast majority of drivers, EV drivers, a level 1 provides them with the mileage that they're going to use if they charge at night it gets them enough charge miles to do what they need to do going to work or running whatever errands they have during the day. And so I think that level 1, especially given that it's much simpler and less expensive than the level 2, I think there's a real role to play in having level 1 chargers. Ideally for multifamily housing, if there's a level 1 on the premises, ideally there should be a level 2 public charger available someplace in the community, not too far away, so that for those days that you do need more charge than you're able to get with a level 1, that would be available. But anyway, I'm really glad to see this presentation. There is a huge need that I see in our community among our renters who live in multifamily housing to have EV chargers, public EV chargers. We don't have many public EV chargers, so this making chargers more available in more multifamily home dwellings is, I think, really important. So I would support this. I think a rebate as opposed to a rebate makes more sense here. It requires less staff time. I just think it's a lot more likely to fly through city council if it's a rebate rather than something that requires more city staff time. And I would support a flexible installation requirement, as Michelle has suggested. Just want to mention also, I have a EV charger, and I make it publicly available. There's a EV Match is an app that you can private EV charge owners can list on that app. And I do get people that come by and they are all across the board. They are people who live in apartments that do not have access to EV chargers. And I talk to them, and, there's a real problem in Albany. And the level 3 chargers that are available in Albany and in Berkeley typically are really expensive, like 65, 70 cents a kilowatt hour, just really out of reach for a lot of folks. So thank you. Bye-bye.
Nick Peterson, your time starts now.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you for putting this together. This is great. This is exactly what I think the Climate Action Committee should be doing, especially this focus on multifamily. I wish there were more funds available. Sometime you'll have to go over how the CAP designated funds are accrued, because it seems like we should have more than that. But I know it gets used for other things. I too support the idea of, I like the flexibility that the building owner has under the rebate system. I think it gives them, they know right away, oh, I'm getting this amount of money. They can sort out with their preferred contractors how the work is done, whether they put in 110 or 240. They might put in a mix. So that, I think that's really a great way to run the program. I also, like Lucinda Young, think, I have 2 EVs. One is a very long range one, but one only gets like 50 miles per charge. And I always just trickle charge it. I just have a cord that goes out to it, I plug it in, and, it can be down to 6 miles and it'll go back up to 50 in 8 hours with level 1. Level 1 gets you about 8 miles per hour of charge, whereas level 2 is more like 30 miles per hour. 30 miles of charge per hour of charging. So I think 110 works quite well, and there have been, as Lucinda mentioned, studies that especially in multifamily buildings where there's absolutely no other choice. Your other choice is to go to a commercial charger, which is more expensive. They just charge you quite a bit, especially the rapid charge. So I think this program will work well. I look forward to it being rolled out quickly. And I think the outreach to the building owners, I encourage you to message it in a way that, looks beneficial to them, that, the city would like to have more support for renters being able to own EVs, and that this is an attractive option for them too. As they find renters, they can say, hey, I do have a power available for charging an EV in my garage. So anyway, I think you put together a good program here. I look forward to it going through its pilot process and then doing something like we did with the heat pumps where it becomes a bigger policy. Thank you.
That's all the public comment we have.
Thank you, commenters. Any discussion from the committee on this? I just want to praise the subcommittee and Michelle for putting this together. This is really very well thought through, and I think incorporates several iterations at this point of thinking about it. So it feels like a solid plan. I'm excited to see how the adoption goes if it passes.
Yeah, agreed. Great work. Very exciting to see this coming to fruition. One comment, the Chamber of Commerce is a good channel to email property owners in terms of reaching folks, and they have like a format where you can do a email blast to their members, and they do like monthly happy hours to raise awareness of different issues.
Sorry, I'll just add whenever, if the committee is so struck to make a motion, that the motion, I forgot to put a slide on it, but the motion would be to recommend that the city council create this multifamily EV charging program, and it would be wise to put a little bit of language, I'll actually share my screen again, just describing the main beats of the program that I put in here about the budget and the amount per building and per charger, with those other 2 points too. So that would be the motion that the committee could take, or obviously change any part of that, but just for context on the process here.
I would like to make such a motion, and I'm wondering how many of those details? Do we want all of those details?
Be safe. Yeah, I'd say just, yeah.
Can you zoom in?
Sorry, what?
Can you zoom in a little bit? I can't quite read it. Sorry. Thank you. Okay. I would like to move that the city council adopt this multifamily EV charging program as specified with a budget of $18,000, allotting a $750 payment per instance, per building, and an additional $750 per charger, with a ceiling of $6,000 per building, and a minimum of 2 chargers for each building.
Good. Second.
Member Bierce?
Yes.
Member Hodges? Sorry, could you repeat that?
Yes.
Thank you. Member Larson?
Yes.
Member Lieberman?
Yes.
Member Melgen?
Yes.
Member Rose Shears?
Yes.
And Chair Vahil McClanahan.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
You too. Thank you.
Good plan. The city council likes it. All right, we're going to move on to subcommittee updates. I presume that effectively was the subcommittee update from Zero Emission Transportation. Anything from the heat pump rebate subcommittee? Oh, I think this is the heat pump water heater rebate subcommittee.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should we
No
close that
updates.
subcommittee? Because we haven't really done it much in a while.
Sorry, say that again?
Did we close that subcommittee, Troy?
Yeah, I think we actually discussed the possibility of doing that last meeting, and I believe I was told by the city clerk that we had to make that a special item, and forgot to do that. So, yeah, if that's still something the committee's interested in doing, I can put that on the agenda for next meeting.
We had a similar discussion about the Zero Emission Transportation Committee being sunset because it has been happening for so long, and they're not, that's sort of not in the spirit of how subcommittees are supposed to work.
Yeah, we can add those both on the future agenda item requests.
Might also add the cap goals subcommittee, because I feel like we'll have reached the end of our journey by next month, maybe.
Any updates for tonight?
Not particularly. I mean, the small update that, there's been a little bit of conversation, and I have reached out at this point to staff and those officials who would like to speak about it, and spoken with the person I was recommended to speak with at the city of Menlo Park. So I think maybe Catherine and I might be able to meet and talk about all that and learnings. But that's all the update.
We can go to questions or comment on those.
Yeah, that's.
If there's anything.
I don't know that, given that we don't have updates, maybe we can skip that actually. And proceed to the announcements.
Oh, it looks like Troy has something.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I clicked the wrong button.
Oh, okay.
Proceed.
Okay. I think we technically have to open to public comment, but we can limit the time if you'd like.
Sure. Yeah, given that it is not a substantive thing on which to comment, let's just have 1 minute comments.
Great. We do have one.
Nick Peterson, your time starts now.
Yeah, thank you. So a little concern here in that as far as the committee members themselves, idea generation for policies and actions that bring forward the goals of the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan usually are birthed in subcommittees. If subcommittees are all sunset, are there going to be new subcommittees, or what are the? I would feel better about this all transpiring if the committee was going, yes, now let's do a subcommittee for, point of sale requirements or electrification or something like that, which of course won't happen. But it just seems like you guys need to generate some ideas here. And if there are no subcommittees, how's that going to happen? Thanks.
Was that all
We
the
can respond at
comments?
the end of the comments. I think there's more.
Okay, didn't know.
Lucinda Young, your time starts now.
I think Nick, who just spoke, has a good point there. I also just want to point out, I think there was a mention to sunset the heat pump rebate committee. Just want to mention that tech clean rebates for HVAC and heat pump water heaters ended just this past week. As we all know, the federal tax credits ending at the end of this year. So I think, continuing or maybe even looking at expanding the heat pump rebates, given this change or basically elimination of so many other incentives that homeowners have relied on. So I would just hesitate to discontinue the heat pump rebate subcommittee. Thank you.
That's all.
Let's respond.
I mean, I would just say when we had our conversation with Michelle, when our Zero Emission Transportation Subcommittee talked with Michelle, we talked about the purpose of and scope of a subcommittee, and it felt like that particular subcommittee's scope was very broad, and it had been having meetings for a long time, and the idea of a subcommittee should be more focused in scope and shorter term. And so maybe what we were looking at as a committee was, broader than it and longer than it should be, and we should focus in. And so, yeah, to address Lucinda and Nick's comments, I think we have the same feeling that we want to have subcommittees and we want to pursue new ideas, but having these ad hoc committees that just go on and on and on is not in the spirit of how this city committee is supposed to operate. So we can rethink about some achievable goals for the subcommittee in a shorter time frame and reconfigure.
Yeah, I just want to express my strong support for the comments that were made. Yes, I definitely want to do more work and the kind of work that we have to do in subcommittee and cannot do in the meetings. So I would hope that part of this process of sunsetting the ones that we're not actively using is bringing in the new ones that we want to be working on. And that's so, mental note, that's something to bring to the next meeting is other proposals for work in subcommittees. To Lucinda's comment about rebates, I don't think there was any intention of changing the existing, sunsetting the existing rebate programs. And I expect that when those run their course of approved funding, we would then reconvene a subcommittee to make any changes.
Yeah, that would be the way of doing that. Yes.
Yeah, on that, even we make a subcommittee, maybe it would be helpful to think about what's the budget we have next year, any budget updates from the inter-DD funds. I know that we had a presentation about that maybe a year ago. I can't remember when exactly, but kind of periodic updates on that are helpful to help us shape. Can we add more rebates? Can we add more money? We're limited by some things. That's a constant question I have. How much money do we have to spend? And then so the budget question is kind of determines what can we do for ideas? It's partly based on the budget.
Yeah, I would just add to that it is very much a rolling target, right? Because we're currently operating under the balanced budget. So in some sense, our ideas will need to come before the funding and the budget be written around those ideas if the council. Okay, I'm not seeing any other comments on the subcommittee updates. So now let's move to announcements, the staff or from anyone on the committee.
Great. Now that the announcements is at the end, usually all of them have been said by someone by the time we get here, so I'll just reiterate a few. I think Nick Peterson mentioned the film screening that's coming up, hosted by the Albany Library and Albany Climate Action Coalition. Also, as Lucinda mentioned, the tech rebates for single family are just closing up. They are opening up rebates for multifamily buildings. So that's something to spread the word about. If anybody knows multifamily building owners or, if you're a tenant of a multifamily building, want to share that with your building owner. Those are coming up. I'll also just note that our December meeting is scheduled for December 17th. So if you think you won't be able to attend that meeting, please let me know as soon as possible. Sometimes we reschedule the December meetings to make sure we have a quorum. It might be that we don't need to. So just good to know that as soon as possible. So please get that information to me as soon as you have your plans finalized. If you do know you'll be there, you can also send that to me as well, just so I can get head counts on that. I'll leave it there since we're running low on time.
Thank you. That will conclude our meeting.
Oh, we need future agenda items.
Oh my goodness. In that case, can we please open up public comment for future agenda items?
And I'll note we've got 4 minutes till 9, so we might want to limit the comment period or extend.
I think that's very good advice. I think we can do agenda items quickly, both on the committee and on the comments. So let's do 1 minute.
Okay, great.
Jean Wu, your time starts now.
Hi, thank you very much. I just realized since you're closing out so many subcommittees that my suggestion would be to start a subcommittee on developing a resilience hub at the Albany Community Center and start looking at realistic ways of getting that to happen and what would need to be done. It's my understanding that there is more than one way to approach this, so I'd really be interested in seeing a subcommittee work on that and maybe in the spring have some suggestions about how to approach it. And realistically, maybe we would be able to involve others in the community or on staff to work on it. Thank you.
Lucinda Young, your time starts now.
Yes, a couple of things. My understanding is from attending city council meetings, and a comment has been made by the city manager that public EV chargers for Albany are being explored by the new community development director. Interested in what's going on with that. My understanding had been that adding some level 3 chargers at the Toyota dealership next to the freeway was being explored. There's been some discussion among ACAC members. We do not think that serves our community well. We don't think that's where the need is. We need level 2 chargers, not more level 3 chargers. I mean, so I just would like to see the CAC have some input on what's happening, if anything, with
that's
public
time.
EV chargers.
Thank you, Lucinda.
Nick Peterson, your time starts now.
Thanks. I want to mention the countdown clock is just staying at 1. I don't know my time.
Really?
But anyway, yeah, just to follow on Jean Wu's comment about the Resilience Center, you know, here it is, COP30 in Brazil, and the U.S. is not in attendance at all. California is, thank God. But again, this idea of leadership and our governments leading our community, including our local governments, I would like to see more progress happening on the city's own efforts to decarbonize. And I think following on Jean's comment, taking the community center and kind of moving that forward as a building that will do full electrification is something that should be pursued. And I think the Climate Action Committee should suggest that to the city council and the city. And I would support you creating a subcommittee that would look into the electrification.
7 seconds.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
That's all the comments.
Thanks. Okay, now I move that we extend our meeting to 9:05.
Second.
Member Bierce?
Yes.
Member Hodges?
Yes.
Member Larson?
Yes.
Member Lieberman?
Yes.
Member Melgen?
Yes.
Member Rose Shears?
Yes.
Chair Van McClanahan?
Yes. All right, future agenda items from the committee.
I second Jean and Nick's comments about the Resilience Hub updates, community center, electrification. I think those are important topics for agenda items as well as for subcommittees. I also agree with Lucinda's request around public EV charging is a good topic to discuss. And I also want to add a couple related to, we have stormwater season coming up with the rains and street trees, active transportation. There's 3 areas that we can address with a proposal Dan Johnson has related to improving biodiversity and drainage and sightlines and intersections called WISE. Also interested in getting, as Nick requested, a public presentation with waste management with the city related to education and recycling and waste sorting and stuff. That's important. So we don't have wish cycling and having trash and recycling, et cetera. So also want to talk about native street trees and native landscaping ordinances. Since we have a lot of street trees that are not native, don't offer the same benefits native trees do for spaces, and there's some relatively large requirements for species, like, for example, Live Oak requires 10 feet for a space. They can grow a lot less, and Berkeley see this a lot. So examples of looking at the consultants' recommendations for native species and the space they are allotted for trees versus the non-natives is interesting to dig into. Anyway, my 2 cents.
Yeah, I'm also interested in hearing about the work the city manager's doing. I'm given to understand that there's a limited degree to which they can communicate about that because these conversations are, private, essentially. So we have to figure out how to get public oversight to what the public is doing about these private negotiations. So it might be a little tricky, but maybe they can give us some general information. Troy, is your hand raised?
Yep. Yeah, I had one quick one. Yeah, I'd be interested in a quick readout on how many heat pump water heater rebate applications we've been getting. Maybe it could be as part of a kind of final act of this iteration of the heat pump water heater subcommittee to help kind of set some feelers for how we might want to adjust the program going forward.
Thank you. Any other suggestions? All right. Thanks, everyone. This concludes our meeting for November.